Welcome in, everyone. RFK Refugees Podcast. Ted here, John here. Off-season edition, back after a slight slumber after the NWSL Championship. John, how you doing, my friend? How's the winter weather been treating you?
I hate it. I hate winter weather. It's the worst. I don't like the cold whatsoever. But today was it felt like 60. It felt gorgeous today. So
It was
I
nice
guess
today.
that's good. I can't complain about that. What's been up with you? This is the secret, is that we don't talk unless we're doing the show, pretty much. So what's been going on? We need like a occasional life, but what's going on in your life? How's everything going? It's all good.
Yeah, we communicate. We communicate occasionally, but yes, it has been a little bit long. We've been catching up with families. We've been taking a break. Sometimes it's healthy just to take a break, just to sit back.
Are you still taking a break from refereeing? Is it the off season?
Oh, it's over. It's over. Now it's workout. It's get swole. It's trying to keep myself.
Right before the holidays. Knows that.
It goes. No, I had a good weekend last week. I saw Interstellar in the IMAX theater, which I hadn't done before.
I have a lot of friends that.
Yeah, so that was fun. That was cool. And
did you say you had never done that? Or the 7? Did you see it live, or had not seen it in IMAX?
I had not seen it in IMAX. I've seen the movie. The movie. I'm a big Nolan fan. So I've seen the movie, but I've not seen IMAX. How was your weekend? I hope it was good.
I didn't see anything cool in IMAX. I don't know. I don't know what happened really. Watched some sports. I don't know. I went Black Friday. I bought a bunch of really cheap jerseys on closeout. This is a Czech Republic jersey.
Nice.
I got a US away jersey for like $27. I was like, this is perfect. This is exactly what I want to pay for a blank US jersey. And I have a Cole Palmer jersey coming. I have moved to Chelsea, which is, I think, hilarious that I'm doing that now that they're kind of good again after having 2 years of them being just completely embarrassing.
Mm-hmm.
I'm back. But also, even if you're not a Chelsea fan, I think Cole Palmer is like one of the more interesting dudes in that he is so dumb. Like he is a himbo of the highest order. He is very dumb, but he is it's very compelling to me. I don't know why I like it so much, but there's nothing going on. It's just soccer. There's no higher level anything. It's just like I just score goals.
Yep.
Don't care.
Yep. And you're deluding yourself that you can chase Liverpool for the league title.
We're not in the title. We're just happy to be here.
Definitely not. That's what I used to tell myself as a Liverpool fan. Like everybody say, "Oh, they won it. They've got it done." I'm like, "No, they haven't. They haven't won anything yet."
Oh no, it's way too early. Nope.
All right.
That's Arsenal.
Let's dive into soccer. Otherwise, people complain. Let's start talking. MLS. We got some MLS. We got DC United news. We got some Spirit news. We got a lot of stuff to dive into. So we'll do our best to cover it up. I wrote out a really hastily written outline with a bunch of players. Though. It is nice. We got a lot to talk about. So let's dive into it. MLS Cup. Let's start a little MLS news. MLS Cup happened last week. John, did you watch?
I did watch it. Me, you, and 15 of our other friends watched this pretty much.
Yeah, and 468,000 people total viewed the final. Combined audience across Fox Deportes, across MLS, and even across MLS Season Pass. I think that was kind of the numbers came out for Fox. They were not great. The Nielsen ratings came out for Apple TV. So this was a historically bad like MLS Cup final. Usually MLS Cup finals get around like 1 million. Usually a bad year was usually when it would drop like 800,000, 700,000, but it'd be consistently viewed. So John, what do you think? What gives? What gives.
We know what gives. MLS has become a secret on Apple TV. It's just become all of the apples were in the Messi goes to the championship final, and then when Atlanta United knocked them out, they were just like, well, there's always next year. We'll figure something out. But no, I think if it's not on. If it's not on over the air or other things that people already pay for without having to pay something extra, it's just not in the conversation. The final should have been pretty interesting. I think Ricky Puig blowing his ACL out was unfortunate, and I think probably hurt a little bit. But the Red Bulls have not been a going concern of anybody other than the very small section of fandoms that are Red Bulls fans. In the country, they just don't. The star power isn't there. Emil Forsberg does not do it for really anybody except for Red Bulls fans. And the Galaxy are, while they're certainly more star filled than they were in the last couple of years. It's not Landon Donovan, Beckham, and Robbie Keane anymore. So the final is for casual fans, and the casual fans aren't showing up. They didn't pay for ML season pass. They forgot, because they didn't pay for it. They forgot the season existed. And then even if they did know the season existed, the playoffs started 2 years ago. So they've moved on. There's other things to do.
Yeah. By the way, so I was curious. So what were the ratings last year? I believe was an 815,000 viewers ratings. I believe actually numbers are now a little bit higher. I think it's around 533,000. So somewhere in the 500,000 range. Still not great.
No.
I have a what MLS needs to do. We know that there are, and I think MLS knows that there are more than 400, 500,000 people that watch MLS soccer out there. And I think that is, if I'm in the TV offices, I am wondering why are those people not watching us? Why is the people that show up to watch Seattle, show up on this podcast? Todd and Timothy, thank you for the welcome back. We'll get to your questions. The people that follow their teams. The problem with MLS is the same as it ever has been. The main problem. I think there's some argument to make about the schedule. They're talking about moving the schedule to the spring. I think going up against the SEC final probably didn't help things. I'd be curious to know what the TV schedule was for the last MLS Cup final, and also for the one 2 years before that, which, by the way, was actually very good. The ratings were excellent for that final. I think the Apple move can pay off. The biggest problem is, and I think it stems back to how they approached this year from the Apple deal. Because if you remember when the first year of the Apple deal, we were like, this is great. We've got all the content.
Very happy.
The quality was good. Everything looked good. Everything ran mostly smoothly. There was some great analysis. They had a Christina Uncle in the stands doing referee breakdowns. They had all this other staff. And then they went next year and they said, oh, now we're going to cut that staff. At basically Extra Time is now kind of a roving band of like two or three people. They've cut that mostly. I think they've cut back a lot on the support staff behind the background. And I said at the beginning of this deal, I said, this can't just be a way to watch the games week in and week out. There has to be more. What's happened to the Drive to Survive documentary? What's happened to all the shoulder content? They do a preview show. They do a preview show every single weekend. The full version's on YouTube. You can't find the full version anywhere on Apple TV.
All you watch your teams, right? Like you watch the little section, like Kalen Carr talks for like 90 seconds about DC United.
And even the full show, I tried to put it on. It's not really, it's fine. It's like 2-3 minute blurbs about the game. It's not very engaging. And I think that was the major mistake this year. They did not take all this momentum that they had around this Apple TV season pass and actually put forward something that would actually attract fans, that would educate fans on the teams, that would give some background, some stories. They need to look at this not as like, this is where, we're going to make this money and from Apple, and this is going to be where we're going to be, and I think the cutbacks they made were disastrous. I think it really made it so it was really hard to like actually follow the league and follow the other teams. I mean, I listened to Extra Time Radio. I will admit my mind wanders when they're talking about other teams in the league. Maybe if they built something into a more compelling story, maybe if they did tactical breakdowns, maybe if they did player profiles, you could learn something about these teams. And that's where I think they really need to look at this. They're supposedly going to be developing some sort of like MLS Drive to Survive. That is how you get casual fans into the game. They learn about the teams. They learn about the players. Don't look at this as like something that you're going to shoot this and everybody's going to flock to it. Like everybody flocked to F1, the F1 show. It's not going to happen. But if you can present it and say, here's our league, here's some stories, then you'll have the fans that'll sit down. Oh, they're doing a profile on Matthias Klick. I'm a DC fan. I'll watch that. Hey, that was great. Let me watch this next one. And then they slowly build up where people learn more about these games. You can build up more interest about the cup. If you make it a good product, people will then start to sit down and follow the league, and they'll watch the championship game.
Yeah.
And you have better numbers.
So they did. I remember they did a Klick mini documentary. It was like a 5-minute thing, maybe a little bit more than maybe 10 minutes. That was great. I'm so much more interested in about hearing who these players are off the field. it's weird, right? Like, we do a show about this. I'm obviously a pretty serious soccer fan, but what I want from my entertainment perspective is not more soccer stuff. I have enough of that. I actually want to know who these people are for whatever that, whatever good that does me. But one more thing before we get on DC United. What do you think? I don't know if this number is correct. What do you think the number? So how many did we say? We said about 500,000 watched the game.
Mm-hmm.
How many total MLS season ticket holders do you think there
are? Maybe 5. You're probably gonna tell me like 500,000.
420,000. So not even. So maybe every single season ticket holder for all the teams watched the game, and then 100,000 people. There are 2 million subscribers of season pass at the end of last year. Surely that's gone up. I don't know what 2024 is. They're very tight-lipped on it. But that is wild that like, because if you are a person that has given hundreds or thousands of dollars, you're probably going to watch the final. You're pretty invested. You watch at least 18 games in person and probably 18 more away for your team, no matter how good they are. So obviously things are not good. These are two teams. You have LA and New York. It wasn't like it was Kansas City versus St. Louis. Like, not to shit on the Midwest, but like that, they could not have asked for, better media markets, and it still just fell flat. So
yeah, and we can talk about the New York teams in the media market. Maybe this changes when New York City FC gets a stadium, but
maybe
the teams in the New York media market are not doing a good job. If I am Don Garber, that is maybe one of my biggest failures, is that I could not get a New York Cosmos style team that could generate attention, that could generate. Maybe maybe he's hoping that changes with their new stadium. But I mean, those teams do not act like the LAs. They act like
they do.
They act like maybe a Philly plus, both of them. And that's really sad.
They're going to be in Sports Illustrated Stadium next year. So clearly that's going to take off in a major way.
Yeah.
Let's talk about DC United.
Let's get to our team. Let's talk about that. It's late, guys. By the way, we pulled the old broadcaster trick. We said 9 p.m. so everybody would go to their computer, and then we actually start broadcasting at 9:30. We pulled the old broadcasting trick. That's what we did. Let's start talking DC United. So I think we've talked about this player, but I've got the list of all. These are all the confirmed incomings. We have Jordan Farr, Luis Barraza. Am I pronouncing that correctly? Jose Kojima and Joao Peglo. Let's talk about Farr and Barraza, who are the goalkeepers this year. Obviously, Jordan Farr, former Tampa Bay Rowdies goalkeeper, kind of a USL journeyman, 2022 USL goalkeeper of the year in the championship with San Antonio. So, and then Barraza, who's kind of we're going to group these guys together. We haven't really watched them. You can look at all the advanced stats, for Luis and everything like that. You're not really going to be able to. It's hard. Goalkeepers are hard. No one can really get advanced stats right with goalkeepers. So what are our thoughts about, I guess, these two keepers and what you think?
I think they are a better 3 and 4 than DC United had last year, or depending on the part of the year, 2 and 3, just based on sort of where they are in their careers. The fact that Jordan Farr has had a bunch of minutes, even at a lower division, has won not silverware, but has won sort of acclaim. Barraza is no longer the starter, was no longer the starter in New York City, but certainly played quite a bit, sort of like a Tyler Miller, sort of like an Alex Bono, and that sort of tweener guy who didn't establish long term. But we're going to talk about another goalkeeper that's potentially on the way in, who seems to be ticketed for the number 1. If these guys are your 2 and 3, I think you're fine. I think that's fine. The good thing here is they're cheap. Like, we understand. I think what we're understanding is the salary is much lower than Tyler Miller and Alex Bono. I don't know about Jordan. I forget his name. They played 5 minutes in a friendly. Who's our fourth string goalkeeper?
Nathan Crockford.
Crockford. Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, he was on probably the lowest wages possible, but I don't imagine Jordan Farr's not going to be on a whole bunch. So
yeah,
they're trying to moneyball this a little bit, I think, at this part of the roster, which I think is probably smart based on what else we have to do. I have no problems with this. What about you?
Yeah, I mean, I think we heard some of the goalkeepers they were talking about, Tim Melia, Maurer. I think these are better signings than both of those players. Jordan Farr's 30, so he's still very much in his prime.
Yep.
It seems to me it's kind of like they're taking sort of they're kind of, I don't want to call it like throw everything at the wall and see what sticks. I think they're taking like very like strategic like approaches. Like they're picking a USL competent goalkeeper who I think is kind of ready for the next step. So let's give him that next step. Let's give him that opportunity. Maybe he becomes like this out and out starter, this incredible player once he makes that step up. That can happen with some players in the second division. And, there's not really a pipeline. It's talked about a lot, the pipeline between USL and MLS. Luis, Cody, the goalkeeper coach, I think is also formerly the goalkeeper at NYC. So that might be playing a little bit into this. Maybe you get him in front of a goalkeeper coach that's good. Maybe he can, redevelop some form. So I think that's certainly the idea between the two goalkeeper signings. Let's go and talk about, we're talking goalkeepers. Kim Jong-un is the likely number one. Currently a starter for Jeonbuk Motors. I'm sure someone.
I think he had second. I think the second one was right. Okay. Jeonbuk, I think, is right.
Jeonbuk Motors in the Korean first division. They are low in the table, but he's been apparently a really highly touted talent from people who watch the league. He's getting senior call-ups to the South Korean national team, a U22 initiative signing as well. Also, funny enough, there's a neat story behind him. He went on loan for 2 years to a club in Korea that is specifically set up because players have to do a certain number of years of military service. So literally there's a club in the Korean first division that literally just has loaned players from other teams where they can do their military service and then they can play.
It's like the West Point of the Korean first division.
I apparently that team is grayed out in Football Manager, but I'm like, man, that would be like a fun like Football Manager save to see if you could take that team to like, it'd be like running like an NCAA program. Like you have 2 years, you've got to like get the most and you've got to like do loans.
It's the meme from Twitter. What if all the troops got together and made a team? How would they do?
But yeah, anyways, he's at Jeonbuk Motors. Highly touted player from what we understand. I think had something like a 50% shutout rate last year in the team. And really, I think they say he credited them. This team was like destined maybe to go down a division. He kind of rescued them and kept them up. If you're worried, about where they sit in the standings and everything like that, the only thing I'll say is like, think about how good Bill Hamid was during some really, really bad times in DC. So
if you're getting call-ups from that team at the bottom, that just says a lot about you and your skill, your individual skill. I think it's just cool that we are now starting to scout different parts of the world in a way that we've never really done before, because it's no longer Kurt Morsink getting on a Southwest flight to Honduras. It's now we have the ability and the interest in looking everywhere. So I think that's cool. I think granted, we just talked about a USL and a NYCFC signing, but we're going to talk in a second. We're looking elsewhere. We're looking at sort of play in parts of the world that we hadn't before. I think that's a generally good sign. It's also higher risk. I think we talked about that last week. This is Mackay is, he's stepping out a little bit. He's not taking the easy, like, well, no one will doubt you if you sign an MLS vet to a 3-year deal and, nothing ventured, nothing gained. This is a little different. I think particularly if we're expecting this guy who's very young to step in as the starter in MLS. Like that's a big jump, I think, probably from the Korean first division. I don't think that's a really controversial thing to say. So we'll see how it goes.
Yeah, I mean, Korea's not a terrible, I guess, in the AFC, in the Asian program. I mean, this is a guy playing first division soccer elsewhere in the world. I don't know how you would classify it as whether it's probably a step up, maybe in terms of salary. But I think, I think this is a risky move. I will agree with that. I think it's also I like it as a move, is sort of a creative move. I think that's been mostly what I've seen reflected. In a lot of the in a lot of the talk around MLS is like no one's really used the U22 initiative spot on a goalkeeper, and that's maybe a little bit of a risk, but I like that it's maybe thinking a little differently, and that's kind of what I wanted from this team. For so long, it's been like predictable move after predictable move. We'll get to some that I think are kind of maybe calling back to old, but I think they're maybe given a little more, a little different.
In the first Google result for league rankings, like football league rankings, we've got, and whatever this is, globalfootballrankings.com, for whatever it's worth. MLS is rated 9th. K-League is rated 20th.
Okay.
So below the second division in Italy, below Turkey, below second division in Germany, and the Polish league. The Polish league is 16th, which is going to be important here in a second.
Yes, it will be. Yeah, but I mean, I think it's I'm excited about this move, and this move for Kim is not official. It is apparently according to
Goff has it everything but a jersey, I think, at this point.
Yeah, it's unless we have another Sonny Kittle on our hands, where he'll basically be signed up.
We just want to say quickly, we've got a viewer right now saying that Barraza is played very well in Campeones Cup. And 2 years ago, he's a capable player. So that's for what we got him for. That's you can't beat someone with a little bit of a upside and a little bit of a proven record too.
Yeah, and you talk too about we're going to do a second. It's a lot of what we talked about is how much this team overpaid for certain players. They seem like they brought players in. They were paying $1 million, million and a half dollars. Martin Rodriguez, as much as we liked him, that guy came in and you looked at his pedigree, and you were like, okay, this guy seems like not really worth $1 million to like $1.5 million. The amount of salary.
Turkish second division at the time.
Turkish second division, exactly. So it's kind of like, and we'll get to some, there are the international signing we'll get to we'll talk a little bit about his stats and what that means, and maybe some people are pointing it out, and I think it's worth talking about. Let's talk about the maybe a little bit of the surprise was I think it's Jose Kojima.
I hope it's Jose, so people can be really confused, like without reading it, just think, is it Jose? Where's this guy from? What's going on here?
It's Jose Kojima. Apparently, he's a football manager. He plays a lot of Football Manager, so maybe we'll have to trade tips or ideas on that. Acquired from San Diego for $400K in GAM after taking him from St. Louis in the expansion draft. So this is
very MLS move.
Yeah, part of the expansion draft is, sometimes they'll get players, sometimes it's about acquiring assets. He's a left-sided winger, former teammate of Tubbs over at Wake Forest. So there's a little bit of a connection here. 21 matches, 9 starts, 2 goals, 1 assist. Definitely been sort of more of a backup. He's listed as domestic on the signing. And I hope that's true. I hope he's been able to get his green card. He's from Japan. He's been playing professional for a couple of years now. One would hope that he has gotten the ability to get his green card. We'll see whether that's the case. But he's listed as domestic. On the last sort of roster profile, he was listed as an international. Well liked amongst the fan base. Many people in St. Louis were sad to see him go. They really seemed to like him. Sort of average attacking stats, but one thing that's interesting, he's very much in the higher echelon among forwards and wingers in FBref for like defensive plays like tackles, interceptions. So a guy that you would think might fit well in like a high pressing type system. Apparently very hard worker, sort of to me like it's like the left-sided version of what we get kind of out of Jared Stroud right now in some ways. So I think he feels a need. The $400K, a lot of people seem to point at that maybe as a little bit of an overpay. Where do you sort of fall on that?
First of all, I want to say it's the St. Louis pipeline with Jared Stroud and now Kojima there. It'll be funny. I'm going to DM their radio announcer, get a scouting report. What do I think about 400 and the price? I think that it's very hard to ascertain the value of draft protection. Not that I think there was only one player under contract in our non-protected list.
Yeah,
and it was Click.
Click.
I think that there was probably some conversation with the move that happened previously with Chris McVay going for 50K. So I think that 400 and that 50 are sort of they're intertwined, and I think it doesn't tell the whole story. So I don't have a big problem with it. I don't think that we're going to be leaning on this player, but anytime you get you get a young player that has started, had some opportunity to grow and figure out what he is in this league, a little bit about him, I think that's good. And we need some play. We need some depth on the left-hand side. We just talked about Rodriguez a second ago and Dahomey both gone. We have a bit of a hole over there. So,
yeah. And the hole, I think, got filled. And that's with the next player. And also, you did mention the McVay sign, DC trading away Chris McVay, who they, by the way, waived the right, again, very MLS, 50K, could rise to 100K based on sort of performance. sort of performance metrics.
Sorry, I'm just realizing I know how to do this now, and I can put comments on the stream.
Yeah,
Thanks,
Jeremy's
Jeremy.
saying the game matches his market value. Yeah, I mean, I think also I look at this as 350K based on that McVay signing, because basically we gave a player we had no intention of signing over to, and we got 50K back for it. So I'm sure like San Diego's like, okay, well you gotta pay us a little more for Kojima if you're gonna get that. So maybe that was part of the trade. Seems like maybe that was part of the equation. Let's talk about the first international player signed abroad. First official, I should say. We've talked about Kim being the second player, and that is Joao Peglo, who's going to be signed from Polish side. And I will Radomiak.
Radomiak Radom is going to be my guess, or Radom. Not the, there are a couple teams playing in Europe in the Polish division right now in the Conference League, which I am only watching again because of Chelsea. But this is not one of those teams. This is not one. This is not one of the elite Polish sides.
Yeah, definitely been a journeyman around the league. Again, we talked about a little bit about the stat line. Stat line's not impressive. 17 appearances, 1 goal, 1 assist. Again, I hedged a bet that like soccer's a lot more than just about some of those stat lines. Again, he is an attacking player. I would also say that if he was, 4 goals, 4 assists, he was lighting it up. He might be worth a little bit more than what DC got for him. 700K is the rumored transfer spend that they spent on him. I know that like seems like a lot when it comes to like MLS and how the salary cap works. That is very much pennies when it comes to the current transfer market.
And he's on a 3-year deal, so it's spread out over 3 years. So
yeah,
it's, you got to make. We talked before. This is one of those risks. This is one of those gambles. You think this player fits your coach's style and fits a need. I think the one thing, if you look at those counting stats, the scoring stats are not impressive. His cross completion percentage is pretty good. His dribbles are good. So there are like those secondary individual stats that don't rely on a good team around you necessarily to be factored. I think we need it. We need some of that. This guy is probably not going to be your goal scoring solution, but also that's not really what they wanted. I don't think if they could find some players who can put the ball on Christian Benteke's head, or I think they'll also be happy with that. So
yeah, put it on the head of the guy who probably had more one headers than any other player in MLS combined.
Seems like a decent strategy. Seems like a good formula.
Yeah. So I don't know. I kind of watched a little bit. He seems like and again, style can change. Everything can kind of change. I watched the sizzle reel. It seems like he does want to play a little more narrow. But again, I think that's kind of what DC wants to look to do, to sort of allow their fullbacks to sort of overlap and cut in and are able to sort of play those crosses as well. So I don't know. It's one of those moves where I think, we have to, and we'll talk a little bit. There's a great question that came in our Discord sort of regarding this. We do have to sort of allow, if Dave Casper makes this signing, I think maybe we're a little more skeptical than if Mackay makes this signing. And that's because, and people say, well, why does that matter? Why one player, if you think the player is good, you think the player is bad. And I'm like, well, I haven't watched any of them. I haven't watched Peglo, but I know that Mackay's new. He has a different eye. He's a different person. He's the one making the decisions. And we don't have much tape on him. We have a few players. Some of them are good. Some of them have been a little concerning. But he's certainly still swinging. So I think it's going to take some time for us to maybe develop an opinion on, if he things aren't going well and he's signing these types of players in 3 years, then yeah, I think we're maybe late for a little skepticism of him. Yep. But right now, I think it's worth keeping an open mind and seeing when he gets out there. All right, let's get into the likely leaving, and that includes Matej Kabone, basically done out the door to AFC Bournemouth. 1.25 million could rise to 2.5 million if he makes appearances. DC United keep his whole fee and can convert it into GAM. And I wonder, can they? So it's 1.25 million, and then another 1.25 million, I guess, if he makes appearances. So if he makes, because he's
appearances for the first team,
yeah. So he's not going to. He's not going to make an appearance this year. He will probably be loaned out somewhere. He's not going to be able to be eligible for work permit. Maybe he plays some time in the Bournemouth reserves for a bit. He's not making an appearance this year. He just doesn't have the capital, that won't have be able probably to get the work permit to actually play. Probably going to be loaned somewhere else. But if he does make that appearance, say next year or 2 years from now, can DC take that 1.25 and convert that into GAM if they get that payment? I don't know. I don't know. That's a question for MLS, but they can at least take this money and they can convert it into GAM. And I think that's why the 1.25 million falls right around that mark. So that's extra roster spend that Makai can have to build this roster. And I think that's important to call out.
We've been talking about what is Matai going to be? Like, what was the expectation from him this year? I also think his head was turned. I also think he was ready to go and give it a shot and try it out. So I'm glad that we got something out of it. It would not have been as much as we would have hoped, but I think it's the whole point here is that you give players, if they want to go, you give them an opportunity to leave and get something from it. He's also has a brother named Mikel who is on trial, I believe, or not necessarily on trial, but is training with Man City right now.
Yeah,
at a DC United's academy. So, good for all of them. I think it's a good thing for this club to have players that are in demand by Premier League teams. So we'll see. Griffin Yao continues. The Kevin Paredes story has kind of got on hold as he's been injured. Griffin Yao is injured. So we'll all be hoping that he comes good, and we hope that we see him on our NBC Sports app on a game we would not otherwise watch in a year.
Yeah, just like we did with Bredes. I enjoyed. I woke up. I
watched so many Wolfsburg games that I should not.
And they were terrible. They were so bad to watch. They're such a bad team to watch. Maybe they've gotten a little better. Again, so the game I think is the important thing about this. I think it allows the team to move. And I said initially, I think if you're not planning to start him this year, you might as well go ahead and sell him and get that value back in. And I think it opens up other opportunities with that roster space to actually, supercharge your rebuild. I also do wonder, if Benteke's here, you have a year with Benteke, if that putting a little pressure to build a team that can win and can compete maybe took a little bit of a forefront rather than maybe taking a longer term approach. Matthias Klick, obviously the elephant supposedly in the room, DC reportedly exploring all options, quote unquote. He was rumored to maybe be in talks with his return to his side in Poland that he played for, I think, when he was much younger before moving to Leeds. That apparently is not on the table and makes sense. He is on $1.9 million a year. That is a very expensive contract for a lot of other sort of teams that are not championship level or Premier League level teams to sort of take on as a salary. So it makes sense that it might be a little bit hard for them to do that. I think you're still looking at, and Goff seemed to indicate it was either like sell him, loan him, or a buyout. I think the selling and the loaning part is extremely unlikely. And I think it doesn't really give you much because you can't really free up that spot. Maybe you can free up a little bit as far as a roster spot. Because there's so many stipulations. If you loan him, you got to get like a certain fee to basically counteract. And yeah, it's kind of a mess. I think he'll suit up next year. I think he'll play through the summer, and then it's kind of maybe Makai can convince him, look, we really need to buy him out. We really want to sign this player, and we just need to buy him out. So
I just love all this Poland talk as a descendant, as from the land of my grandfather. I think that's very exciting. I'm trying to see what Polish club he started. I believe he was coached by his dad there. I'm pretty sure.
Yeah.
But that's cool. So Krakow. It's like one of the oldest club in Poland to exist. So we'll see if something comes of that. He's still training. If you look at his Instagram, he's out there. He's working. He posted today. He was out in Arlington working out. He is a guy who is enjoying his time in America. He is not just hanging out in the comfy confines of his apartment. He's checking stuff out.
Yeah, and Jeremy Drop says, I don't think his transfer to buy down with TAM or just let his contract finish out. You can't buy him down with TAM. He makes too much. Yeah, I think they paid a transfer fee for him. He is at 1.9 million, which I think is like right at the cusp. And then I think that whatever transfer fee we paid for him, I think brings it to up. So he is not eligible to be bought down with TAM. And we'll get into a little bit maybe why why maybe certain other player they might be maybe holding on to that sort of young DP slot. We'll get into that.
Let's whip through these questions.
Yep.
We don't have shows for 3 weeks. Our pacing is not great.
We get loaded up with questions.
Brendan Cartwright. You want to do it?
I can start. Brendan Cartwright. Are there concerns that DC hasn't moved past its reputation of not spending particularly wisely by paying $700,000 for Joao Peglo, $400,000 for Kojima, or do you predict that their future performances will make these costs seem reasonable?
I think we also have to remember we second to last place. I think we have not made the playoffs in 6 years.
Mm-hmm.
6 years? Is that how many years it was now?
Yeah, it's 2019 was the last year, so for 5 years, it's been 5 seasons.
So like sometimes you are gonna overpay. It's just a question of if you're overpaying for a guy that you're not gonna regret overpaying for. And I don't know for sure. I think we already talked about Kojima. I think there's some extenuating circumstances there. And we talked about Peglo. That is a large amount for interleague trades, but if you're looking or interleague transfers, but if you're looking internationally, that's nothing. Rounding error for most clubs. So
Yeah.
I am in between how I think they'll do, weighing it out, but I also just think that the cost is not super high. We'll have to see other moves that happen throughout the year to see if we overpaid, I guess, or in the offseason.
And I mean, I think from a salary, the 400,000, you're getting a million point 0.05 in GAM for Mattia Kambone. Like that, I'm going to assume they're going to I think it's an option to do that. I think if you're Mackay, you're saying, look,
give me that.
Look at that. I need this. So I'm going to take it. So I think they still have so much room. They can build out a roster. They can build out a roster here. And they still need, as Timothy points out, we need a center back. And I would say, yeah, we need a center back. I'd say we need at least like a couple more wing backs. And then, you have the starts of maybe a team, and then you're kind of trying to fill in some other positions. We also have the super draft coming up on December 20th.
Do we?
Yeah. So, yeah, I remember that used to be such a big thing, and now it's like just an
huge
afterthought.
Would stream all multiple rounds on my phone. So excited about it.
Yeah. Brendan Zabran on Blue Sky. Can this be considered a successful offseason if Klitsch and Pirani stay with the team? Don't know they'd be up for moves, but now it feels like it's a missed opportunity if they stay. Yeah, we forgot to mention, I dropped this.
Yeah.
Gabriel Pirani apparently going to return. Apparently has been offered to return to Brazil. I think that's more of a move of, we know the limitations of this player. This player had a pretty good season. Let's see if maybe this is his highest value and what maybe we can get for him. I think he's got a $10 million release clause. I think
that ain't gonna get met.
You're not going to get that. That would put him in like top 10 of like transfers in the league. But if you get half of that or even a third of that, yeah, I think you would hit the sell button on that for sure. We'll see with Pirani. I know he's got a lot of people who like him. I think it's interesting they made these moves. Both Peglo and Kajimi are both going to play on the left side. They're both going to be out and out wingers. I think that might help both Ted Kudapietro and Gabriel Pirani, because now they don't have to occupy that left side. They will be competing right now for that reserve forward, that second forward type option. And I think that will kind of help them maybe be a little bit better. So Wames on Discord. And I'll let you read with some of these, John, I promise. With Goff now reporting that the team is saying all options are on the table for Click. If he does leave, who replaces production? Becomes the new glue. Does McKay find another box-to-box mid? Troy move Peltola back to the midfield? Does the team do as you say and reinvent itself again? I don't. Yeah, I think Peltola is moving back to the midfield regardless this year. Yes. I think that's happening.
Clearly needs to sign some center backs before we can do that comfortably. But that is the plan. It has to be the plan. So he was put there in a pinch, I think, last season numerous times. There were so many pinches. We were just constantly in a pinch. So this year is about not being in pinches. I think not looking 4 positions down the player's foot mob to figure out if they've ever played defensive midfield before. That's where we want to be next year if we're not doing that. But it is true that the double-digit assists are something you have to think about as far as what you want to do. If we free up DP slot, that's doable. That's very doable. It's just hard for us to say who that's going to be so far because A, he's still here, so this all may be for naught. But B, we don't. We're very much at the early stages here. I think they're building around the edges at the moment. There are big pieces that have to come in. I think. Would you characterize that as still like we still need a starting center back?
Yeah,
like a real one.
I think there are other in my opinion, there are other priorities right now. I think offensively, this team was fine last year. This was a team that did well enough offensively to make the playoffs.
Yep,
They did
XG
not do
top third XG creation probably.
Yeah, they did not do well enough uh to defensively to make the playoffs, and that's the big problem. So I think that if I'm Alan McKay, that is my priority. I need to improve this team defensively. I think they've gotten at least a high upside keeper. It might be a little bit rough. I think you need to then say, okay, I need to make sure I get an experienced setter back, whether that's through free agency, which there's still some players. Tim Parker's still out there. I think he would be a potentially solid option. There's a lot of other players out there.
Not super exciting, I would say, but certainly solid.
Certainly solid, yeah. Certainly an improvement. I think I would classify any of the free agents out there an improvement over.
Yes,
mostly be an improvement over last year. I wish Aaron Lawn was available. I wish Jack Elliott was available, but they've all been poached up, and that's kind of to deal with that. So
the Enclave on Discord says this one knocked me back. Since I'm still getting into DC United, I thought I'd ask you this since you guys are DC United old heads. All right. It means true, but ow. What makes Troy Lesesne's DC United much more different than the DC United teams of the past? What are your opinions on this? I think he plays a reasonably exciting style of soccer, not a suicidal brand of soccer like Hernan Losada played the cocaine soccer of DC United for like a season and a half. I think it's still tough, not to be one to make excuses for anything or anyone. It's still tough to really ascertain the full vision of what Troy really wants to do and what he can do, because he came into a roster that he was pretty locked up and he couldn't put his stamp on, nor could McKay really. Now, and also, as we talked about, there were 9,000 injuries that occurred that really sort of limited the ability of the team to put up a side that was, philosophically where they wanted it to be. It's a stretch. It's far a stretch from Ben Olsen, the long era of Ben Olsen. I think, like you just said, the offense was not a problem. XG was not a problem. I think they did not spend wisely in the back at the beginning of last year or then sort of in years prior. So sorting that out will enable us to figure out what this team should be looking like as a full unit versus just a team that's like, well, hopefully we win 4-3. I don't know. We're not stopping you scoring.
Yeah,
Old heads.
Yeah. I think the injuries are a problem. I think this team walking out with 14-15, it shouldn't happen this year. It just shouldn't. This team should have enough of a bench to be out there. I think they are still hamstrung a little bit, obviously, by they don't have an MLS Next Pro team. You're seeing a lot of them. If you kind of track what other teams are doing with their MLS Next Pro teams, they're able to go in, grab an 18-year-old, pay $2 million for him, stick him on their MLS Next Pro team. They don't have to worry about what he counts against the cap. They can let him develop. Then they can bring him on as a U22 initiative player. Like
the dream, man.
Charlotte's doing this. Austin's doing this. It's really a problem that DC doesn't have this, and I think I worry about them falling behind if they don't get on this. But I think that is maybe what to watch for next year. Getting more depth in this roster. I think that's why you're seeing them make the moves they have. They're going to be able to get some more depth where it's not going to be, what we had last year with 3 subs on the bench. And I would say, what makes this DC United different is there's a different group in charge of putting the team together. Alan McKay's in there. Dave Casper's gone. I look back at the Joao Peglo signing and people were still like almost like making fun of this and acting like Casper was the one that made this decision. And I'm like, he's not there, guys. Your joke kind of falls flat because it's not Dave Casper anymore. It is Ali McKay. So, next question. If I understand Nathan Arbitman on Threads, if I understood correctly, latest golf article suggested that the team is seeking to restructure Click's contract and enable another DP. Is that how you interpreted it, or would it be cheaper, more straightforward to buy down Patola's contract to below a DP level to achieve the same objective? I don't,
not
I
restructuring,
no.
not a restructure. Most likely, he's guaranteed what he's guaranteed. It's not buy downable, as we said before. Uh, Certainly, buying down Peltola is part of the overall strategy, depending on how they deploy the number of under 22 players and DP slots. That's still sort of an open question. But I think, it feels to me like both the Click and the Pirani News are. I put them at less than 40% likelihood of happening. I think both of them are likely to stay.
Yeah, I think I would even say less than that. I think both of them. I think
15%.
There's a 10% chance, unless DC exercises the buyout. I could see them exercising the buyout on Click's contract if they the owners have enough money to do that.
Sure.
I think it's a matter of whether you want to do that or you want to hold on to it. Because again, Click, it's not like he's a player who's not been productive.
No, he's a player you'd like to have on your team. We just don't like the contract. We don't like the spot he occupies. But to your point, you then you'll spend that $1.5 million, and then you get to go replace it. You got to figure out exactly how much money you're going to spend to replace that spot.
And I think we've seen one player, well, two players technically, two players from that were signed by the old team that were sort of re-upped past, I'm not going to count, obviously I think Russell Knaus got his option exercised last year, but I think that was more out of, I think what he was going through, or maybe it wasn't even known at the time, but I think it was also like, I can't have just everybody gone from this team. I need some players for next year. But we've seen the past two cycles, like every player that has not been one of Ali Mackay's guys has their contracts run out. They've been gone. I think Click's in that same boat. Mackay really couldn't control the fact that the contract was exercised. I think that was a decision made before his time. And so I think he's exploring options. He's maybe if there's an avenue where he thinks maybe he can offload Click, I think he'll take it. Because I think he ultimately wants to get this team. He wants to get this team set to where it can be his team and his vision. And the only other player he really signed has been Benteke and Gabriel Pirani. Those are the only two players that he's really sort of brought back that were scouted or on the team when he was not as GM. And every other player has been, either retired or has been they've moved on to free agency or they haven't exercised the option. So that's just food for thought. As far as Baidan Patol's contract, I think they still have that option. I think Mackay knows he has that option. It's about weighing whether the cost he currently has to the cap, which is like $150,000, suddenly is not worth as much as the ability to sort of free up that DP slot. I think it's smart to keep that in your back pocket until there's a player that you can say, we need this player as a DP, either a center back or some other player. We need this player as a DP. We can fit him under the cap, and we're going to buy down Patola's contract, because I think they have till the registration deadline to actually make that claim as to what they're doing. So
yep.
I won't be surprised if they do it. I also could see them maybe wait till the summer, keep him at that salary cap, especially if they're trying to build out other parts of this roster. They still have a ton of roster they're going to have to fill out over the next couple months. So it might be smart to keep him at where he's at because he counts less against that cap.
Thank you for all of the questions, particularly on, I think it was about probably a 45-minute notice before the show recorded after not having done one for 3 months. So
people are desperate, man.
We love you always. Let's get into Washington Spirit content. Again, we always love when it's timed perfectly. Signing occurred here for the Spirit, signing Narumi Miura, free agent previously with North Carolina, a temporary / I don't know if we want to call it permanent, a number 6, a fill-in for Andy Sullivan. We saw last year what happened after the Andy Sullivan injury, what Hal Hirschfeld had to do instead, and a lack of depth in that midfield, really what it did to this club. So making, not waiting around, signing one of the more desirable defensive midfielders in the free agent class. I think also, I didn't know this. I thought that this is probably an oversight on me. I thought Andy Sullivan tore her meniscus like Croy. I didn't know it was an ACL tear. So that's a 6 to 9 month on the sideline. So they could not have started this season. They didn't want to start the season the way they had to end last season. It moves Hal Hirschfeld back to her normal number 8, gets her further up the field, makes her more dangerous. I think it's a really great signing. The challenge continues to be the sort of the lack of clarity around salaries, salary cap, what the implications are, how much space they have, because they still have holes in this roster to fill. But with all that not being known, I think this is a really, really good signing. They still have the college class, the non-draft college class, to sort of pick around and decide where they want to fill holes and where they have desirable players to bring up. So overall, God, I think we're gonna be pretty happy with this.
Yeah, and I mean they'll be an attractive team for free agency. I'm sure there'll be some players that will look for how can I get the most money, how can I be the most competitive, but there'll be others that'll look like, well, yeah, Chicago is giving me $50,000 more, but I don't know if I trust them to be the best spot to develop. I know the investment that the Spirit are making. I know that they will take care of me. So yeah, I'll take maybe $50,000 less to be treated a little bit better, or to be a more of a priority. So I'll be curious to see how quickly they're able to sort of accrue some free agents this year. So I found it funny that, like, the FB ref comparison literally had Hal Hirschfeld in there.
You love
it. As one for Mura. So
next bit of news, I think 2 days ago, they announced that they've re-signed Kaylee Collins. That's the goalkeeper they signed as an injury replacement for Liza Bosselman. I believe Liza's still sort of who they see as the more, the more likely player to play in the long term, but still recovering from injury. So they wanted to get another body in there. There were other roster positions that were finalized here. Barnhart, Boutel announced on Instagram she's gone, she's not coming back. Anna Halferty did the same thing. I don't know if Lena Solano has done any sort of Instagram post. I may have missed it. And Savannah Coleman has not been with the club for a while. She had her 4th ACL tear in her young career. So I don't think she's coming back. Lena Solano was a bit of a surprise. I think you and I were both like, you could keep her around. You could also go a different direction. But they decided not to do that. Anything standing out? I mean, obviously it stinks. Anna Halferty's gone.
Yeah.
I think she's the player that we most miss out of that. But
yeah, Anna Halferty maybe is the one that hurts the most.
Yep.
It's a shame because she really was a really good player for this team for a long time. Just injuries set her back. I mean, she's the one who gave the best quote at the end of winning the 2021 championship to CBS. Basically said, "We are the bleeping champions." So that was cool. So she'll be a player that will be missed here, I think.
I also like talking to her. We interviewed her a couple times. I always liked her perspective, and also particularly after her first injury. I talked to her maybe 2 weeks before her second injury, and she had just gotten back into the side. I hope, I don't know what she's going to do next. It didn't sound like she was retiring. Maybe she is. I think it's very hard mentally to come back from injury and then injure yourself again. I say that as a person who just found out this week that I retore my rotator cuff in my shoulder. And I'm likely going to need surgery again. So I get it. I am not anywhere near the mental strength of a professional athlete who is just like, yeah, I just got to do it. But I think that this club still needs a center back pretty badly. I'll just sort of get into the question here from Hamidou, who I believe is a Patreon. Thank you for supporting. If you're the same guy, what roster building avenue should the Spirit look for a center back in? Can they gamble a bit on college players for depth and long-term prospects, or should they go someone with like a Tatum, Milazzo in free agency or internationally? I typically would have said I don't think I would go the college route, but Mark Krikorian is the
guru.
The guru of picking college players out. So I think that's certainly within reason. Milazzo, I looked at her FB ref page. She's a free agent from the Red Stars. 98th percentile in every defensive statistic. So sure, maybe go that way. I don't know what, again, salary cap implications are what they are. I don't know. But with Boutel leaving, there is an absolute need, I think, for a starting center back. You've got Morgan, you've got Mikione. But I think still there's room for a challenge. Although, last year the thing was like Mikione's probably not a starter. She needs a rotational. She needs to be a rotation. She's nailed in. Now the question is Morgan. Now the question is Morgan your every game center back? By the way, Mikione got engaged I think 2 days ago. So congrats to her.
Congrats to her.
What do you think about where this team needs to Where
Yeah,
center back is the spot, right? That's probably
yeah.
the
Center back is a spot. I think Milazzo's a very good. Like obviously, you talked about the defensive stats there. I think the question for her is going to be, does the offensive, because Tara McKeown, the passing out of the back, I think is something
it's a need. You're right.
yeah, it's definitely a need that the Spirit value. They want
Sam Staub, I think, is a player that I've heard of. She's coming back from injury too. Maybe maybe Sam Staub couldn't come back.
certainly a player who can pass out of the back. I think it's going to be a question of what does their salary cap look like. I think they do have a lot of sort of high priced. They have obviously Trinity Rodman, who's certainly up there as far as salary goes. By the way, everybody leave her alone on the Red Bulls jersey. She's sponsored by Red Bull. I don't think it's that big of a deal. So
It is not.
I'll just leave that there. But I think it's more of a question of what's the cap situation look like. Is there a player out there you can go get? Because if you do draft a player, they probably will draft a player. No more draft. There's no more draft. Sorry, I'll get used to it. Sign a player from college. There's a chance you can get them maybe a little bit cheaper, and maybe trust your gut. You found Hal Hirschfeld. You went and found Croy Bethune. You went and found all these players who have done exceptionally well out of college and have just jumped right in and been starters. So I think they definitely need some depth there. I think it's going to be Esme Morgan and Tara McKeown, obviously, as your locked in starters there. I think that's a good combination. And goodness gracious, like looking at like Tara McKeown's like stats as far as like a center back is like impressive. Like maybe she's like not good as far as blocks and interceptions, but like tackles, clearances, she's up there. And then it's like passing stats is like off the charts when it comes to center back. So just just such an incredible player, and I think one that should be hopefully getting some call ups to the national team soon. We'll see.
Set at wing back, I think for sure with Gabby, Casey Kruger, and Paige and Kate Wiesner. I think they're set there. There are other positions. Midfield is still a little weak. They're not going to rush Croy back with her history of injuries. Andy Sullivan's half season likely.
I think Croy will be back to start the season.
Do you think they're going to play her as much as they did last time? Every game, 90 minutes, like they were trying to before?
I think maybe there will be. I think you got to hope Lacey Santos can kind of step in and sort of be a better player. So,
but if you look at the rest of this roster, Courtney Brown, Heather Stainbrook, who started in the final, or maybe McKenna Morris started for Stainbrook, but those are players that started every game out of necessity through the playoffs. You could see some strengthening there. I think it's certainly not players that you intended to start. And up front, Ashley Hatch still under contract. Rose Gossie, McKenna Morris, who I'm really happy with her. I think as far as a player who's a rotational player that when you put her in there, she makes an immediate difference. You love that. Brittany Ratcliffe stays. Chloe Ricketts still in the club. Loan her out, please. Trinity Anule Sarr, who is still, I think her injury did not require surgery, but she was out for the rest of the season. So there's holes to fill. I think it's going to be the college route. I think they're going to go that way pretty heavily.
Yeah, I think for some of these depth positions, for sure. I think the question might be for center back whether they want a more established person to compete, to rotate. I think might be a question. But
you don't want to waste prime Trinity Rodman years on if there's a chance to get an established player that you can afford that's going to make a difference, do it.
The goal this year should be to win the championship. I think this team proved it last year. They put together an incredible roster. They've got, and you've also got to look at this too. You've got a good thing right now with Hal Hirschfeld and Croy Bethune, but you're also running up to, if when their contracts run out and then they're going to want more money because now they've proven themselves. Hal Hirschfeld's getting national team call ups. Croy Bethune's getting national team call ups. Those types of players then start to want, they demand more money as they should. So that becomes a question of sort of the cap and everything like that. So, all right. I think that's going to do it.
Right under 60 minutes here.
Yeah, right under an hour. We did a good job. Got you out of here. Thank you guys so much for listening. Again, we appreciate the questions. We appreciate you guys jumping in. We're probably going to go a little bit on more of a break. I don't think we have the
see you in the new year
wherewithal to do a New Year's Eve podcast, and then it's new and then a Christmas Eve podcast. So we'll see you guys in the new year. We'll definitely, if there is sort of a breaking story or a big story, I don't know, we're signing McKelly and Mbappe, maybe we jump back in. Obviously, schedule comes out on Thursday for MLS as well. So
follow us on all of our social stuff. We'll keep talking to you there.
Yeah, we'll keep talking to you there. We'll definitely work on gigs and posts maybe when the schedule comes out. We got some games. We got the draft. Tons of stuff to talk about. All right, guys. Thanks so much for listening. We'll catch you guys next year. Vamos.
Vamos.